looking good. We got some great expectations. Need to come with you. Together, 1+1. One division. Sun, brightest rainbows and sun.
Welcome to the Nerd Soul Show. I'm Nathan.
And I'm Colin.
Starting a few minutes late here. We had some technical things we had to iron out. But this week we're going to be talking about What If, episode 4 we're now at, which is entitled What If Doctor Strange Lost His Heart instead of his hands, or something like that? Or something like that. Yeah. And we are going to also talk about Titans episode 6, which is entitled Lady Vic. Okay, so as always, what we're going to do is start with our spoiler-free thoughts about the episode, and then jump into spoiler talk about the episode. So, what did you think of this week's episode of What If, Colin?
Yeah, this episode really hit me hard for this Doctor Strange one. I think it explained why he was who he was, and it was a very kind of interesting premise as to how, from the previews that you saw, how this darker version of Doctor Strange came about. I'm not going to spoil it here. Guys, going to be saved for the spoiler part, but I'm not, again, spoiling anything that you haven't seen in the previews already. But it was very interesting. It was very heart-wrenching in many instances, dealing with the storyline, and it was very emotional. Definitely very more emotional than, say, the last episode. I thought that the last episode was very emotional with all that had happened, but this one really felt like a gut punch in a lot of ways. But definitely very interesting overall, very compelling. Just kind of up its game in terms of the emotions.
Yeah, it was a good episode for me as well. So I haven't really thought long about how I would rank them, but this would be ranked very high. This really made me think of a Twilight Zone episode, or a Black Mirror episode, because I guess well, I don't know if all the Twilight Zone episodes end badly, or end in a dystopian sort of way, but almost all the Black Mirror episodes do. So it made me think of a Black Mirror episode, which is awesome, because they're doing lots of different things here. Last week it was like a whodunit or a mystery. The week before that it was like a space heist sort of episode, and this one is like I said, Twilight Zone. So I really appreciate them stretching the medium to tell all kinds of stories, because it makes for much better or more interesting storytelling week to week that don't necessarily have to connect together, and you can just tell good stories. It's good. It's hard. I mean, without spoiling things, it's difficult to talk about the specifics of what I liked about this episode, but yeah, just twisting things a little bit. And also, I feel like since the last episode, they stopped having to kind of hold the hands of the people who are watching the episodes, because in the first episode they were like, this is the moment where things change, and they kind of stopped doing that. And you can kind of put together where things are different, which I also appreciate. So yeah, it was a really good episode, and really looking forward to like delving into the specifics of this episode. So with that, I am going to we're going to issue a spoiler alert. So spoiler alert, we're going to start spoiling the heck out of this episode. So if you haven't seen it, we both, I think, recommend it. Go see the episode, and then come back and join us in this part of the this discussion. If you're watching live, you can come back because it's being recorded, and watch it later. All right, so jumping over to, I have some screenshots here that queued up. So the beginning of the episode, we are confronted with the difference in this universe. Difference being that what the catalyst was for Doctor Strange's transformation in this universe, or this is that his girlfriend, Christine, dies. So in the movie, it's him losing the control of his hands, which is like, again, goes to the title of the movie. Goes to the title of the episode. What if he lost his heart instead of his hands? So, and this way, I guess he's a slightly nicer guy because she's not his ex girlfriend, or maybe this is just earlier in their relationship, when they were before she became his ex, because it's not clear that the event that they're going to is the exact same event that she said that she didn't want to go to in the movie, because the specifics are a little bit different. So this might be just earlier in his life. So earlier in his life, when they were together, there was an accident, and she died in this universe, and that didn't happen in the universe that was in the MCU proper. So yeah, this scene, the beginning of this was cool for lots of different reasons. The Watcher is imposing himself a lot more, so you see him in a lot more frames, and also later on in the episode, you're going to see him a lot, actually, a lot more than you have seen him in the past. So I really appreciate what they're doing there. It seems like if you see the trailers, it's all going to come to a head at some point, and we're going to see the Watcher not just watch; he's going to actually do things later on. If you've seen the trailer, so he's getting more and more impatient with these mortals and their mistakes. It seems.
It sounds like the way that they kind of set it up is like, oh, I'm not going to interfere. But I think you're right, Nathan, is that I think eventually he's going to have to do some type of intervention, because he's basically looking at these characters. He's like, come on, you can't get your stuff together. Come on now. You gotta, now I have to handhold you through the universe. It's kind of silly, and it's kind of like in his mind, it's kind of silly that he has to handhold him throughout this process, and
right.
And like if not, then the universe is gonna come to an end.
Yeah. So in this universe, this is what, like I said, this is his catalyst for becoming Doctor Strange. So he goes and he finds the Ancient One. He becomes Doctor Strange. He fights Dormammu and everything. And after that, he still is connected to Christine. And he sits in the chair and he thinks about what he wants to do. And in this universe, he decides to actually do something about it using the Time Stone. And that is the main MacGuffin of this episode. Basically, he goes back in time and he tries to save Christine over and over again, but it never works. So there's a couple. I said Twilight Zone at the beginning, and it definitely reminds me of the Twilight Zone, but also Groundhog Day. People online have been mentioning, in Groundhog Day, he keeps trying to save the old man, the homeless man, and he keeps dying. But that wasn't the thing that came to my mind. If people have seen the Time Machine, the one with I forget the name of the actor. It was the one that came out in the 2000s. When he went to the far future and in the far past, he was trying to save his wife as well, and he went back several times, and every single time she would die in a different way, and it's basically what happened to Steven here. He couldn't really figure out how to break this loop, even when he didn't pick her up for this date. She died in like a apartment fire or something like that. So
yeah,
they go to different places. She gets shot. They take different routes. They still get hit. He can't fix it, and he doesn't understand why.
Yeah, it must have been very traumatic to like having that to relive again and again, and knowing that your girlfriend's gonna die every single time. I mean, what will that do to a person mentally? Is just so it's it's an interesting kind of character study as to like repeated traumas like that, especially someone that you love. Is just I can't even imagine it, you know, imagining that to my worst enemy, like having to relive that over and over and over and over again.
I think this is also kind of speaks to why he went a little mad, right? So
Right.
he because he subjected himself to this. This is the different. This is sort of the difference between him and the Doctor Strange that we're going to get at the end of this episode, that didn't go through this and didn't put himself through this over and over again. So yeah. So he does. It doesn't work, and then he gets a visit from the Ancient One, and she's alive because in the past she was alive, and she looks, but she's just, I guess, watching what he's doing, and speaks to him and tells him, you can't change it because it's an absolute point, because if she doesn't die, you don't become Doctor Strange. If you don't become Doctor Strange, Dormammu takes over this dimension, and the world and the universe ends. So yeah, that was the conversation that she had with him. But at this point, he's too far gone. So they have to do battle. And there's a little bit of, I think we have a little bit of that in a clip here. So yeah, in the this is when she splits him. We think that she's trying to hit him, but this is her splitting him off into a separate entity. So
Right.
he goes back and he goes to the I'm pronouncing it wrong.
Cagliostro. I think.
Cagliostro. Cagliostro. So he goes back to the Cagliostro library back in time. And he meets Obang, who, if you look it up, Obang, it was another name for Cagliostro, even though Obang said he's not Cagliostro. Obang is actually another name for Cagliostro, so this might be a Cagliostro. The actor voicing this character actually looks a lot like how they drew him, so it's very possible that he could show up in live action at some point.
Yeah, I a couple of things here. I think that first of all, going back to the whole absolute point part, I was just wondering if, from Endgame, if someone would go back in time to try to prevent Tony Stark's, would that be an absolute point? It just kind of popped into my head. I'm like, that might be very interesting to kind of figure out if that is going to be the case.
So it seems that, and there's been a lot of conversation about this online. I think that, and you kind of have to try to make this make sense, because at this point it's making, there's like layers and layers of complexity. I think if he were to make this decision, what she's saying is that there would be sort of like a branch reality, right? And that's what she said. That's what she said in Endgame. A branch reality where this universe ceases to exist because of this change. So there's the universe that existed when he didn't make this change, and there's the universe that doesn't exist anymore because he made this change. So if you want to fit it into what we saw in Loki and also what we saw in Endgame, that's what she's warning about. If you remember back in Endgame, she mentioned the timelines branching off, and she showed that the branch being very dark. So this is a branch that would be very dark and sort of destroy itself. So I think that's the explanation for what's happening here. He's going, and this is also the explanation for what's happening here is also that in contrast to what they did in Endgame, where they went back to a point and basically created a bunch of branches, and then came back to where they started. Where here he's not moving through the multiverse. He's just moving in within his timeline. Within his timeline, within his universe. he doesn't the time stone doesn't seem to have the power to go to other universes, which is why outside of time at the time variance authority, the time stone and all the other stones are basically useless. They only work in the universe they're attached to. So that's my interpretation based on what I saw online, what I understand about the episode, about what's happening here, and why he can't change this, because if he changes this, it's going to create a branch that destroys this universe.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I just found it very, very fascinating as to the split. Just like when I talked about a non-spoiler part, that there is this. The layers of complexity is definitely in there, because first of all, this is a what if episode. And then there's like another branch of there's another split because of what the Ancient One did. There was a split within the what if universe. So yeah, it does kind of boggle the mind a little bit. And when she did it, I was like, wow, this is really, really complex. And I just wonder if like a general audience member would kind of get it or don't get it, and kind of maybe appreciate it, or at this point you're like, I'm very confused.
So I don't think that she created another timeline. I think what she did is she split him into two different people, which is why at the end when O'Bang said you're only half a man, he had to go and find his other half to merge with him. I think she split him into two people, and the one that she was fighting got away, but she put the other half of him back where he started. So that half of him didn't even remember, or didn't even start on that journey. So I don't think it was two different timelines. I think it was all existing within the same timeline. He was just split into two. He was like, this is why, like I said, O'Bang said you're only half of a man. So that's how I understood that. Okay. So he gets to Cagliostro's library, which might be O'Bang's library, and he finds a way in because it has no door, but he's overwhelmed by these runes, these protective runes, which we see in a lot of different places, and you see the library here. And he almost kills himself trying to figure out how to reverse time, or reverse this absolute point. O'Bang catches on to the fact that he's obviously doing it for someone he loves, and he tells him that he can't, that the entities that he's trying to draw power from. I think O'Bang said that you need more power to actually do the spell, and he's right. in the entities that he's trying to draw power from don't bargain, so he decides to just take it, and this is him getting further and further down the rabbit hole here. He just decides to take the power in the library, and take the power in the library. Take the power from the creatures in the multiverse, rather. This is what he absorbed, a dragon that looks very similar to the one in Shang-Chi, the Shang-Chi movie. And you can see him transforming every time he absorbs a new animal. That the animation in this episode, I didn't mention this over the top, but or maybe I did, but like the animation and the art direction, it's just some of the screenshots that I was able to pull. They're just beautiful to look at, like that one at the very beginning, and all the transformation stuff was also very, very cool.
It did remind me of a lot of anime stuff, especially with the transformations and things. And I wonder whether or not the tentacle creature that he first tried to absorb the energy or power, borrow, like he said, I wonder if that was same creature from the first What If episode.
It definitely looked like the same creature from the scene. So it's unclear, and I was talking to my wife about this, whether or not it's the same creature exactly, like it's the same it's the same creature pulled from a different dimension, or it's just the creature in this universe, like this version of the creature in this universe.
I see.
So it's difficult. It's difficult to tell because the space tone is only supposed to work inside of this universe or the universe that it's in. Remember, we were talking earlier that the Infinity Stones are useless outside of the universe that they're in. So I think it might be the same creature for this universe as opposed to the same creature exactly. Because
okay, I see what you mean.
Because the space zone just opened up a portal within space, and space being that universe in the first episode. So he's opening up a portal. He also only has only has an Infinity Stone. I don't think he's pulling any from another dimension or a different universe. So it might be just the same creature, different universe.
Yeah, I find it very, now that you kind of opened up that Pandora's box of like where these things come from, now it gets like very complicated for a lot of casual fans. It gets very tough. So
yeah,
I mean they're still kind of walking that fine line of like of like making sure that they kind of are like people are kind of understanding it, but I have heard from people online that the complexity of it is getting like almost to like Tenet levels. Where it's like, oh, what is going on here? You know?
Yeah, I don't think it's as difficult as Tenet to follow, but you do have to think about it a little bit. Like I said, I had a conversation with my wife about this the other day. The difference between a dimension and a universe, and we went back and forth, and actually had to go back and research this from old physics books. So. Technically, so Dormammu was in a dimension, a dark dimension.
Yes.
And that dimension could be parallel to universes that look very similar to one another. So the universe that Peggy Carter is in is very similar to the universe that the regular MCU is in. So those are universes. Whereas a dimension could be something where the physics are completely different. And have no resemblance to the universes that we're talking about. So you can talk at the very end of this episode. I think when he destroys the universe, I think he creates a pocket universe, a pocket dimension is what I meant to say. He creates like a pocket dimension. So I think that is the difference. So you could get to Dormammu from any one of the universes. It would be the same Dormammu. That's how I'm thinking about it. But
see, it's interesting. I would rather thought of it from the reverse standpoint, where each of the universes have their own different dimensions. It's not like the dimensions are kind of like, from a visual standpoint, that the dimensions are the overarching kind of thing that's going on. You're saying that it's more of an overarching type of thing that covers all the universes. Is that
what I'm thinking, that the dimensions are parallel to the universes. So the universes are parallel to each other as well. But the dimensions are off to the side, and they're a separate thing that you can also access. So from any one of these universes, you might be able to get to that dimension where Dormammu is. I don't know. My interpretation of this might be off, because now that I'm thinking about it, if that's the case, Dormammu wouldn't be fooled by Doctor Strange the same way twice, right? Because in two different dimensions he beat him in the same way. So there might. So that's why. Yeah.
So that's why I'm thinking it's more like within each multiverse there is like a dimension within each multiverse.
I mean, there's only one multiverse, but each universe is what you're saying.
Well, each universe, right? Yeah. Exactly. Like each universe has its own dimension.
And that's what my wife was actually saying as well. So she didn't agree with my interpretation, because she was like, okay, if that's the case, even if the physics within the dark dimension are completely different, after Dormammu and his dimension makes a decision one way or the other, that would create another dimension, another dimension that Dormammu's in, or another universe that Dormammu's in. So he could have multiple. There could be multiple versions of the Dormammu event universe.
So going back to what we've been talking about was about the creature. That creature could be another version. It's not the same exact creature from the first episode.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think it is getting complex. I don't know that it's, like I said, I feel like I had to watch Tenet a few times to actually understand Tenet. And they might, and at a certain point, they might just explain this more with more exposition. They have a lot more properties that are going to depend on the multiverse, that will have more explanations within Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. But before that, we're going to see some explanations about the multiverse in the Spider-Man movie at the end of this year. You know, depending on how well Shang-Chi does this weekend, we'll get the Spider-Man movie in December, and we'll get more explanations, more explanations of what's happening here. We actually may get more explanations of what's happening here in this show, because at some point, like I said, the Watcher is obviously going to intervene even more, because there's screenshots of him like fighting with the other, like some of the Avengers or some of the characters that we've seen. So he's gonna pull this guy out of his pocket dimension for something later on, because he destroyed his universe and he's by himself, but he's going to be used by something. He's going to be enlisted by the Watcher for something later on. So we might get some explanation of more multiverse explanation after that.
We might get him in Spider-Man 3. You never know. I mean, that's a speculation. I mean, I'm speculating that this darker version was pretty much what you saw in Spider-Man 3, the trailer. So.
I think at this point, I don't think that's the case. I think people are projecting that it's him. Like, before I saw this episode, I thought it's very much a possibility, but by the end of this episode, he was contrite, and I think that he was definitely driven off the edge, but like he understands that he was driven off the edge, and now the universe is gone, and all that is left now is him inside of this small, very very small pocket dimension that he created for himself. I don't think that the Watcher would enlist him later on if he didn't have some sort of, not necessarily redemption arc. I don't know if he's going to be able to restore his universe, but he can make himself useful. So I don't know that is the same. I don't think it's the same Doctor Strange from this show. I don't want to say it's Mephisto, because everyone since
the Mephisto theory.
everyone since February thinks Mephisto is behind every corner, but that is how Peter got everyone to forget in the comic book using Mephisto. But anyway, I'm not gonna speculate, and I'm also not gonna watch any more trailers until the movie comes out, because I saw enough in the trailer that I saw. Anyway, so moving on a little bit, Obeng tells him that he is split into two, because Obeng actually dies, whereas Steven has been absorbing people over centuries, absorbing these beings over centuries. There was a giant time lapse thing there. So, and then Obeng says you're only half a man, and then we go back to where he started, and we see that the Ancient One came to visit the Strange that left, or the Strange that she split off, to give him instructions. So we see her, but in his time, she's dead. So she's basically just a projection from the past, sending him a message that he needs to fight Strange. And he gets a protection runes, I think, from Wong, but also from the Ancient One on his face for the battle.
Mm-hmm.
And then the evil Doctor Strange pulls him back in time to where whatchamacallit, where Christine died, to try to convince him to join him, and that's what we see here. Him trying to convince him to join him, and of course he doesn't agree. Because he's been to the future, he sees what's happening to the world, and he sees that everyone is melting into everything is melting. It's actually the animation on here, the what they decided to do here, instead of dusting everyone, having them drip away like this, is pretty cool for a couple reasons, because it looks like the ink, the actual ink on the drawings are losing ink to like the ether.
Mm-hmm.
So he's seen this, even though they have divergent experiences now, because they were split into two. But yeah, he's not hearing it, and they do battle, which is probably the coolest part of this episode. People imagining the things that Doctor Strange can do, and they kind of misdirect you. They make you think that he's going to win, but in retrospect, there's no way he was going to beat himself. He basically has the same. He started off at the same power level as this guy, but then he trained himself over centuries,
right?
And he absorbed like thousands of animals or thousands of beings. There was no way he was going to win. So this is him. I actually thought this was the Watcher for a second. Then I noticed the cape. You see the beginning of the cape here, the outline of the cape. That it was Stephen pulling him. In the background.
I see. Yes.
Yeah. So yeah. He takes over Stephen. He brings Christine back to life. But that is the beginning of the end for the universe. And this is him. This is him trying to, preserve things, and it doesn't really work. But he's able to create like a small pocket dimension, and then he gets a scolding from the Watchers. He's like, "I'm not a god, and neither are you. If I could punish you, I would." So it's the ending of this is tragic, very tragic, very very tragic. Like I said, like a Black Mirror episode.
Yeah, I mean, there's been a couple of these type of in the MCU proper about how arrogance had kind of consumed a lot of our main characters. If you think of Iron Man, you think of Thor, you thought of Doctor Strange in many ways as well. That's why there was like some kind of very the same secret sauce that's happening with all three characters. But now it's almost like they are going toward that. What if they went kind of full on arrogance? Like they just kind of like uncontrolled, unbridled arrogance, and this was the byproduct of that. And I just found that kind of piece very fascinating in many ways, because they've never kind of done that before. They kind of pull them back from the brink in many of the MCU proper movies, but in this one it's just like kind of like the effects of no one pulled him back. Not even Obang or not even the Ancient One pulled him back from the brink of this type of action. So he had to kind of go through this consequence. And I think it's, you're right, Nathan, that before what you said about how the Watcher might kind of reach out to him in the future to try to access certain things against a greater threat or something like that, and whether he is very contrite after what has happened. So it's very Greek mythology in many ways, I think. Yeah.
At the very end, he says he definitely is contrite. Like the last words of this episode is he's like, "I'm sorry, I'm so sorry," but he's like saying it to no one, because he's the only one that exists now.
Yeah,
Because
that's
Christine,
probably why. Yeah, that's probably why it really hit me because I've read a lot of Greek mythology when I was younger, and they always had these kind of like moral life lessons and things like that, and it really, really was kind of like that. Come to think of it.
yeah, yeah. Any final thoughts before we move on to Titans?
I think that overall this is just really well done. Again, gut wrenching, and just really hits you emotionally. And in a lot of ways, it's almost like their own version of a Greek tragedy in many ways. So it's good. I mean, I like that they're trying to pull from a lot of different type of storytelling elements in order to present it from a MCU perspective. So yeah, hopefully I like the fact that they've been very creative about it, and hopefully that kind of opens them up to a lot more type of storytelling.
Yeah, I'm definitely week to week. I'm liking the show more and more, and I'm looking forward to next week and what they come up with. I think next week is the Thor episode.
Hmm.
So we shall see what they do with that one. Yeah. All right. So let's move on to Titans and episode 6, which is called Lady Vic. So what did you think about this episode?
Oh, this I would say that this episode overall was pretty strong. I think that we've really being rewarded with a lot of our it tested our patience for a while, but I think that there's some things, the elements that are there, I feel as though, oh, I'm very intrigued about this, or oh, this is an interesting type of premise. And at the same time, I think it was pretty solid in terms of the storytelling, and the use of certain elements that they used in previous episodes. We can get into it a little bit later on in the spoiler part, but I would say it's pretty strong. Just like last week, pretty solid. I think that it's definitely much better than the Blackfire breakout of prison episode. I think it's just hopefully it kind of keeps building. I know that there are 13 episodes of Titans, so we are at the halfway point, just about the halfway point right now. So we'll see. We'll see how it kind of shakes out in terms of if it just kind of keeps on going up, or we're going to see more valleys as we go along.
Yeah, I think you liked the episode a bit more than I did.
Mhm.
I I do think that it's better than episode 4. Uh, that being said, I came here tonight fully prepared to say that this is another episode where I feel like if you just catch the previously on in the next episode, it's fine. It's
Mhm.
like it's a place setting episode that's doing a couple things and putting things in place.
Right.
I don't know why they named this episode Lady Vic, except for the fact that Lady Vic shows up. They have a naming problem. Like the episode is not mostly about her. She just this is the first time she shows up. I don't know, but that's not a reason to make the title of the episode Lady Vic. So also they diverge considerably from what Lady Vic is in the comics, and I guess that's fine. She's not a character that people know a lot about, but if they're going to do that, why not just create another character? Because why is her name Lady Vic if they're not going to bring it to the fact that she's supposed to be like a aristocracy, like she's a aristocratic assassin? Why call her Lady Vic if they're not going to say anything about the fact that she was a lady? I don't understand. So she shows up in this episode, and again, that's not a spoiler because they named the episode Lady Vic. And they don't do much with that character. They do a little bit with her, but they don't do much with that character. And there are other things that happen in this episode that I can't get into specifically, but they're, like I said, I feel like they were mostly like putting things in place for the next episode or the episode after that. There is something at the end of this episode that is major. So I mean, if you're, my recommendation is if you're going to watch the episode, watch the very end, the last 5 minutes or so, because something crazy happens there. But I don't know if I'm being honest with people. There's a lot of things on television, right? And people have limited time. I can't tell someone. I don't know if I could, in good conscience, say this. You should spend an hour with this week to watch this episode. Even though, like I said, it was better than 4. 4 seemed like a complete waste of time. It seemed like a complete waste of time. It went on too long, and the characters were making ridiculous decisions. There were some ridiculous decisions here as well. But yeah, it's not as bad as 4. I think 4 is still like the low point.
Yeah.
But I don't think it was as good as the last last week's. I don't think it was as good as last week's episode though. For me, I know it might vary, and we can get into when we start talking about spoilers. Why you like the episode, or and what I didn't like about the episode when we get into spoiler talk. So
yeah, I think just one point about that. I think that we will probably agree on where we don't like it, and then like the parts where I would say that I liked it, and probably because of that part, I'm like, okay, I'll give this a pass. But it's definitely better than episode 4.
Okay. All right. So with that, we should get into spoiler talk to kind of dissect where we didn't like it. So spoilers ahead. You can take my recommendation and wait until next week, or you can take Colin's recommendation and watch the entire episode. Doesn't really matter. If you intend to watch the episode, though, you should go and watch it, and then because we're going to spoil it right now. All right. All right. So moving on, and I have some screenshots here from the episode that I'm going to bring up. All right, so we start with Lady Vic at the beginning of this episode. And she's, for some reason, killing some police officers who are in love. Now, putting aside the real world controversy about police, I don't really understand why this is happening. I don't think it's ever explained. Maybe it's explained and I missed it. Just to show that she's a killer, but why these two? These seem like no power, no bodies. And it's not. I mean, it's not to say police don't have power in society, but you usually don't send assassins after police officers. So I didn't understand this opening. Do you have any idea what's going on here?
Yeah, I when I first saw this, I was like, what is wrong with her? It's like there's something really messed up.
Does she hate that?
Just because she overheard them being in love, basically, like typical. Just like take the fact away that they are police officers, okay? Let's just say, for example, that they are just two people that are in love with each other. Now, there's no reason for you to just like straight up murder them because they are in love with each other, and they explain that they have a dream to be with each other. I mean, I just thought this is way over the top. I really had a really big problem with this part at the beginning. I was like, what is going on here? But but the thing is that it kind of, later on in the episode, because of what happened later on,
is that what they were trying to do?
Kind of find out why this is the case, but still, it's not that much of a justification. It's like, oh, you're jealous. Okay, you're jealous enough that you want to kill these two.
Seriously?
Great. That you're a homicidal maniac who is jealous. Great. Awesome.
All right. So you put that together as you were speaking. I put together. So like it's not clear. Like it's not clear.
Right.
That whether or not this was a hit or whether or not she was doing this randomly. So you think she was doing this randomly because of her own loss, and she doesn't want anyone to be happy because she can't be happy. So
yeah, exactly. It's all jealousy. It's like when in the following the episode, in the beginning, you don't know what the motivation is. You just think that she's a stone cold killer, and that she is just totally just insane. Like, why would you do that? And then you find out later on, it's like, oh, okay, now I know. But still, this is not justified, even though there is a kind of a reason. But come on, it's still a little bit too much. I mean, you could say that she is insane and that she's psychotic and all that stuff, sure, but yeah, still kind of eh.
So this is where we were talking about last week, where I said this show has so much potential, and then they make weird decisions. So, if they wanted to say that she was jealous of these people, making them police officers was distracting to that point, because their conversation could be had by any regular people,
right?
And then you wouldn't be focusing on their position and their conversation. Because of their position, you were focusing on the position, and then she's killed these people who have a position and also have authority and who can use deadly force. So she killed these people, and you can't think of them outside of that. If they were just a couple, and she was listening to this, and the actor was reacting to their happiness, it will be clear. But they don't do that. They obviously didn't write the scene like that, and they didn't direct it in that way. So it's confusing. It's a confusing way to drop you into the episode.
Yeah, I agree, because it's like they should they have been police officers? Not really. It's just kind of like it could be any random people that could be out there, but it's just that, oh, it has to be police officers because they're in a position of power. So maybe they kind of thought in their heads, yeah, like, she's very dangerous that she can kill police officers. I don't know. I mean, I mean,
know. She killed one guy while his back was turned. Anyone could do that. It doesn't make her very dangerous. I mean, she did disarm this woman with a gun, but I mean, you could have had anyone. I mean, you don't have to be a police officer to have a gun. The woman could have just had a gun in her car. She could have been like, the writers of these shows don't necessarily think highly of the audience. So if they wanted to really draw a character that would plausibly have a gun, you could have her be like a kind of a country and western loving woman or whatever, and that's why she has a gun in the car, as opposed to lots of people have guns. She doesn't have to wear a custom western costume or a police costume to have a gun. But anyway, that's what they could have done that, and that would have been a lighter touch than making her a police officer. And it would have made more sense why she killed this person. Like at the beginning, you would have said, "Oh, this woman just kills anyone who's in
Mm-hmm.
love." But at the end of the scene, I didn't know what was going on, because these people were in love, but they were also police officers. So was she sent to kill them? Yeah, anyway.
Yeah, it's all confusing all around. It was just like they just left you with a very kind of weird type of reaction at the beginning of the show, and you're like, what is going on here? I don't get this here.
Anyway, then we move on to sorry, this is a little bit out of order. Let me sorry. I'm not sure why it's jumbled like this. Alright, give me a moment. Because I don't want this to be... It's going to be a lot more difficult to have the conversation if they're all out of order, so...
Mm-hmm.
Alright, so after this... After this, we go back to the manor. and we have to deal with the repercussions of 2 episodes back when for some inexplicable, unexplained reason she let Blackfire out of the prison. And Blackfire acts the way you expect Blackfire to act. She expects to have manservants. To I think Kory's term of art was manservants to chew on or chew toys. So yeah. So she
a little cringy, but okay, all right. I'll let it go. I was like, yeah, okay, all right, got it.
So Connor.
Yeah.
So Connor is the she thinks Connor is the chew toy for her, and Gar is Kory's chew toy.
Yeah.
So it's I don't know. There it seems like she in this episode she does spark up a little bit of a friendship with Connor.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I don't know if she's a friendship or she's just attracted to him. But yeah. So then we get a bunch of sequences where this is the part where I didn't like as much. I mean, the Blackfire stuff wasn't as bad this week as it was in episode 4, and she also became useful later on in the episode.
Right.
But they also did some stupid things with her as well that I'll talk about. But we have flashbacks because Barbara is still feuding with Dick because she shot him 2 episodes back. Not directly, but through her men, she shot him. She sent her men after him. That that could be a obvious result of her sending the police after him. It's him getting shot, and he got shot. So they have some flashback sequences to their romance. So in these flashback sequences, do you get the sense that she didn't become Batgirl? Like it seemed like when he mentioned Robin Girl and Batgirl. He says Batgirl and then he says Robin Girl. Like she seems like she was just a thief like Selena Kyle, and they were like, thieving together. But I don't think she became Batgirl in this universe.
Yeah, I don't think so either. But she's in a wheelchair, so I don't. Yeah, I don't.
Yeah, she is in a wheelchair, and later on when she fights Lady Vic in that wheelchair, she says that I hope that. She said Lady Vic says the Joker should have finished the job. So she's in a wheelchair because of the Joker in this universe, which is the same as the main continuity, the main DC continuity. Right. However, if you remember from that storyline, he doesn't shoot her because she's Batgirl. He shoots her because she's the commissioner's daughter. He doesn't know that he doesn't know that she's Batgirl.
Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, if that's the case, then most likely that I would speculate that she probably did not become Batgirl, and that she's kind of like a Selena Kyle ripoff type of thing. And this really took me off as well. I think that this whole thing, the interpretation of it, of them like stealing things, I'm just like, wait a second.
These are just
like they never caught them. Like they never caught them.
Also,
they never solved the mystery. I don't get that. And like,
also,
wouldn't that be very suspicious? Like to be under the nose of the commissioner.
And also Batman. Yeah. So
that's kind of weird,
That's yes. If you're thinking logically within this universe, that doesn't make sense. And also the whole storyline of them deciding to write this doesn't make sense because it smacks of like entitled white kid fun. Entitled white kid fun, right? He's basically the ward of a billionaire, and she's the daughter of one of the most powerful people in the city, and this is what they decide to do in their spare time. It's entitled BS that they decided to do as privileged kids, which is all another reason it annoyed me.
Yeah, I didn't even think about it from that standpoint. I just found it as though it's like these are characters that are very iconic, and you turn them criminal. It's like, what is going on there? That's kind of that's kind of a reach there.
And what's the point here for cheap thrills because they're young? I don't understand. So like, yeah, I don't mind This is part of the episode that really annoyed me because I don't mind them writing something different than the comics, but you have to write something better than the comics. Don't write things just because they're different. They're not. It's not better or more interesting because it's different. Make something that makes sense. This. I mean, and you can't write the characters. You can't take some elements from the characters' personality and then mix it in with random stuff that don't necessarily match their personality. How they wrote these characters. Well, Barbara is a new character, so we don't know who she is. So I guess she could have been an entitled brat her entire childhood. But the way they wrote Dick over the last 3 seasons, it doesn't make any sense why he would start stealing stuff with her. Especially the way that he confronted her was he was trying to stop her from stealing something, and he was like, "Oh, what? She's so beautiful, or whatever. You know what? I'm going to become a. I'm here to stop crimes. I'm going to become a criminal." It made no sense.
Well, there's been a lot of, to tell you the truth, there's been a lot of the Batman movies that make no sense. I mean, there was the interpretation of, in Batman and Robin, Batgirl was like the granddaughter, granddaughter of Alfred, and then in Batman, the first Batman, the 1989 version with Keaton. The Joker is the one that killed his parents. So I think that actually
they've done that before though.
Okay,
they've done that before.
The other one, yeah, that was kind of weird.
So like in different mediums, they've shown that the Joker, who was I think Jack Rapier, has killed his parents, and they do that. They do that to have him have a deeper connection with the Joker, and there've been comic book stories where he's the killer, and also I think animation as well where he's the killer. But that's fine. That doesn't really change. That doesn't change anything except for, like I said, it connects him to the Joker from childhood. That's why that change is sometimes put into a story. But I don't understand what the purpose of this is. I really don't. It's an off-putting diversion. It doesn't explain. I mean, it explains how they met Lady Vic and why Lady Vic doesn't like them, but it doesn't even that flashback. Like I said at the beginning, doesn't really explain Lady Vic. Doesn't explain that she's an assassin. In this, they just look like rival thieves that fought in the middle of a museum. That's what it looked like to me when they meet Lady Vic and her boyfriend who gets killed because she throws a knife and it hits him. I don't know. This of all the things that annoyed me about this episode, this annoyed me the most because it made no sense.
But you're referring back to the scene in which her boyfriend died. That's when I realized that, okay, now we can go back to the beginning and say, okay, we understand why there was that type of jealousy that was going on, and it made sense, but still, it was still kind of a little not right still.
Yeah.
For the moment.
I understand show, don't tell. I think it's better written, better art film or in television when you show what's happening instead of telling. But I don't think they showed enough at the beginning to understand to connect to later on in the thing. Like I feel like they think they had a brilliant setup at the beginning that she was killing lovers, and then later on they explain why she's killing lovers, but they didn't set it up properly at the beginning.
That's that poor execution. But I think that I understand what they're trying to do, but the execution wasn't very good.
Yeah, that we already talked about that. That annoyed me, but not nearly as much as the Barbara Dick cat burglar randomness that they put in the middle of this. But anyway, so we're back to present day, and we have a demonstration from Crane to Jason. You're basically telling him that you're expendable. You're because Jason thinks that he's in charge for some reason, even though he's the one that's hooked on drugs that he can't produce in any kind of quantity. And he's taking he's taking orders from. He's been taking orders from Crane. Crane is the one who provided his suit, but for some reason, in Jason's deluded mind, he's in charge. So
yeah, it's kind of weird. Yeah, he is still he's like getting to the level of like King Joffrey. There, it's like, come on, like you want to like kind of like, come on, knock some sense into the kid. And like, what's going on with you? What's wrong with you here? Wake up, you know.
Anyway, so yeah, Crane brings him to this this operating theater where he's arranged for all these doctors to die for some reason.
Yeah, another senseless killing.
It's a bunch of so I think he does it to steal this this device, but all these people didn't have to die because she doesn't kill the patient, but she kills all these doctors. I don't know if these doctors were former rivals that in medical school, because he said he would come here and eat lunch and watch surgeries. Anyway, a bunch of random
killings that make no sense
to disabuse Jason of any notions that he's in charge of anything. Basically, I think is what if I had to stretch for why these people are dying, she got specific instructions from Crane to put on a show for Jason.
Right.
That's the only thing that makes sense.
Yeah,
because she could have disabled all these people and taken the device that she took, but whatever. Then we split off because Connor, Kory, and Blackfire go to chase down the lead. The doctor, one of the doctors who actually created the device that she stole that Lady Vic stole in this episode. Sorry, in this scene rather. They track down the doctor and they to this building. So the doctor actually had something embedded in her body, similar to what was embedded in Hank, and this time Connor was able to recreate the device a lot quicker to save her, which is great. And we also get a hint at why Crane stole the device, because Connor using his Lex Luthor brain said, if I wanted to, I could use this to create as many chemicals as I wanted to. So I think basically what we're thinking of here is what they're hinting at here is that he's using this device to mass produce the chemical that he's going to distribute on the street. Well, that he's going to distribute on the street, except for the fact that Jason also already went ahead and distributed it by himself on the street, because Jason is who he is, and he's probably going to be dead by the end of the season. I don't know. He makes a lot of stupid decisions. He's probably going to be dead instead of dead and then brought back. Anyway,
I just want to make a comment here about two things. First thing is that this episode you kind of see Connor's development a lot more, because you didn't really see much of Connor in the first 5 episodes. It was just like the Hawk episode where he was featured prominently, but he failed. But it's just like I think that this explanation and all that, you get intrigued as to kind of figuring out what is his role or what he's growing. Hopefully, there's more storyline about him. In the future. Because I think that he's a pretty compelling character with the whole split of Kryptonian and Lex Luthor brain and things like that.
Right. So
and I think that I think that also with Starfire is just with Kory. I think that she also has a very compelling storyline as well. Not to mention that's a very stunning costume as well. Like it's like really stunning overall. It just kind of pops out at the screen and things like that. And I was just like, wow, that's pretty cool. And I think that hopefully they get to highlight these two characters a lot more, besides just going into the whole Bat family drama that's been happening in the last couple of episodes.
I'm honestly a little bored with what they're doing with Dick and Barbara. I don't know what the point of it is, and it just got worse this week. Like they were petulantly sniping at each other, and we were hoping that there was going to be an explanation for why they fell out, and this week did not make all of the petulant sniping at each other in the previous episodes any better. It just made it worse. So you're right. I'd rather they focus on give these characters more time to breathe and actually develop because in addition to Kory and Connor separately, like I said earlier, Blackfire connected with Connor in the back of the car before he was needed urgently to help with the bomb, and they had a very good conversation. So they actually not just developing that was a good development scene for both of them. You got to hear a little bit about both of them in that scene.
Absolutely. I totally agree with that. I think that was probably that conversation between them two were probably one of the best parts of the whole episode.
Yeah. That being said, the fact that they're leaving here, like it's, in this conversation, this is where he figures out that he could create as many chemicals as he wanted. But I don't know. She's like, what did she think was going to happen when they got back to the car? Did she think she was going to be there? I was. They keep having Kory make stupid decisions when it comes to Blackfire, whereas in other cases she's very savvy. Yes, I understand that he had to rush in, but is she super surprised? Like that's the thing that she's not there. I don't know.
Yeah, she has these moments. I think that I don't know if it's intentional or anything like that. It's just like always have these kind of, I would call it brain fart moments that she has. Like obviously she's wicked smart. Obviously she's a natural born leader. But every once in a while, she has those types of moments of lapses, and you're like, what is going on? Like but I mean, anyone's allowed to do that because people are human and things like that. But still, it's just like, really? She has a lapse in that. Really?
They could also just write her better.
That's true.
anyway, this sequence also was stupid. I don't know how you felt about it, but like having Gar
detective work,
having Gar like slashed in the air, and then he was like Dick was like, oh, he could just listen to it and know how big the blade was, and I don't know, it allowed Gar to do some awesome action here with a bunch of different blades. So I guess this guy, this actor himself is actually a martial artist, so maybe that's why they wrote the scene so that he could show off the fact that he's a martial artist. But it was corny to me.
I actually did not mind it that much. I think that it reminded me of some of because in the Batman movies, they don't really delve really deep into the detective work. And so I think that this scene kind of delves right into the detective mode type of thing that's going on. So I didn't really mind it too much. Reminded me of like the Dark Knight stuff when he did some detective work with the gun. And also with and also in Batman v Superman, he did the finding out about the kryptonite. I mean, I didn't mind it too much, but I get what you're saying, in that it may, it is kind of like, why is it that he's able to replicate the sword sounds, and then he's able to kind of like, he's able to deduce, it's from this sword and this person, and like, well, this sword and this type of sword and this type of movement, so that means that it's her.
I think you misunderstand what I'm saying when I say that I think it's corny.
Okay.
I actually like detective work stuff, and I'm annoyed with the movies and certain representations of Batman where he's just punching people. And I think I mentioned this earlier on a couple weeks ago. He's supposed to be the world's greatest detective. Actually, it was last week when I mentioned he's supposed to be the world's greatest detective, and Dick is basically the person who would take over for Batman, because his detective skills are almost as strong, if not almost as strong. So I don't mind that they had a part here where he had to figure something out. I just think the way that they constructed what he had to figure out made no sense. It was unrealistic that Gar could recreate the movements in exactly the same way as she was moving, and he was able to get the height and the fact that the height of the person. I know that he actually had interactions with her in the past. They could have constructed this in a different way, created different puzzle pieces that were more connected to the previous scene, because in the previous scene we see them fighting him. Sorry, her fighting him, and he putting the pieces together. But the movement through the air, I feel like it was just they wrote it. They had to shoehorn in a sequence where this actor got to show off the fact that he could wield a sword in a very impressive way, and they made up this thing that made no sense. I like shows like Sherlock and Elementary. I like mystery stuff, but when they're well written, this was not well written.
So the premise of this, I think I remembered you saying that, Nathan, last week, and that's probably why I kind of gravitated toward the scene a little bit more, because of what you said last week about Dick's detective skills, because you kind of brought that. It was kind of like imprinted in my head,
right.
and then now it's like, and then I think that having. I think this is the recurring problem with the show, is that we get the intention, we get what's going on, but the execution is not where it's supposed to be. It's just like it's a little off, or it's not supposed to be there, or it's like out of place and things like that. And I think that we're trying so hard to understand what's going on in terms of the writing, but it's just not as well done as it should be, to a level where it's like, oh, it's actually pretty cool and it's actually pretty intriguing. They leave you with enough intrigue to keep you interested and engaged, but not to the point where it's like, oh wow, this is really awesome, So yeah, it's the whole it's a recurring frustration going on with this, not just with this episode, but with previous episodes.
Yeah. All right, so moving on from here, we get, for some reason, Barbara is tricked into coming to an alley because she thinks Bruce wants her to come to an alley where it all began. It all began. So we saw this set last week in Lazarus, because in the flashback episode where we figure out what's happening with Jason, this is where Bruce brings Jason in to tell him that he can't be Robin anymore. So, and she's attacked by Lady Vic here. I mean, it's hard to tell whether or not this is a stupid decision. I mean, it is a stupid decision, but like how stupid it is. Like, don't tell Dick, come alone. I mean, I don't know. Like at this point, she has been. Unless they're trying to say that she hasn't been in any contact whatsoever with Dick, and she doesn't know at all that Jason is the Red Hood. If she knows that Jason is the Red Hood, she should know that Crane has all their secrets, and she should have verified who this was. I don't know if they're writing.
Yeah, this kind of really weird.
Go ahead.
Yeah, this just kind of rubbed me the wrong way. It's just like, how can you fall for that? It's like, you're the commissioner. How can you fall for that type of thing? It's like, shouldn't you be able to deduce that there's a trap? I mean, please. It's like the oldest trick in the book, and you fall for it. I mean, come on now. Don't tell Dick. Come to an alley, where it all started. And it's like, Bruce is already gone. And it's like, what? It makes no sense for her to, like, in your mind, you would be saying, it makes no sense. This must be a trap. And I should not go there. Maybe I should go there with backup at least. Or someone, or like some of my guys, like, letting me know what's going on. Not like just going by yourself and just like getting into a situation where you might get killed. I don't get that. Yeah.
It makes no. So a couple things. I think this episode, I keep saying episode, I mean, this scene was constructed in a very similar way to the previous scene when they were trying to figure out the mystery. They decided that they wanted to have a cool action scene with Lady Vic fighting her in the wheelchair so they can show how formidable she still is, even in the wheelchair. And from there, they worked backwards. Now, when they worked backwards, they ignored everything about her character. The fact that she's supposed to be smart, the fact that in episode 2 or 3, named Barbara Gordon, she doesn't like Bruce. So she would definitely not show up in an alley for him just because he says to show up. They wanted to have a fight scene with Lady Vic and her in the wheelchair, and they didn't really do the work to explain why she would get here in this scene.
Yeah, I would have to say that this fight scene in the wheelchair definitely really well choreographed. I love the action scene. It's probably my favorite scene of the whole episode. You know, as I finish the episode, it's probably the thing that still sticks with me the whole time. But yes, the setup, it's really, really bad. Like really, really, really bad. Cool. Like, how can you be that not smart about the whole situation? How is that possible? Like, you are the police commissioner. You don't have backup. You don't have a sense that you don't like Bruce. You don't have a sense that Bruce is, it's a trap. I mean, come on. Come on.
Yeah, I feel like they fall into a trap sometimes that a lot of action television shows and also movies fall into, where they think that if the action looks cool, that's enough. But the best action movies, the action is part of the narrative. The action, there's a story. There's a story inside of the action, and it's there because it's part of the larger narrative, and also just within the fight itself, there's a narrative in the fight. I don't know what the narrative in this fight was, except for that they don't like each other. And if I wanted to see just action, I could just watch clips on YouTube of action, people doing like martial arts. The reason that you watch an action movie or action television show is because it's supposed to be weaved into a narrative. And like I said, they just decided that they wanted to have this fight, which looks cool, but makes no sense where it is. And also, the thing leading up to them getting here makes no sense. So. Yeah,
a point about that is that I think that my brother actually told me one time about the not the original Star Trek, but like the Next Generation Star Trek, where the narrative itself leads into the action. It's not a very action-oriented show. I think that there was one scene that he showed me. It's like it's really so well done. I think it was one episode where I think Counselor Troy was like taken over by an entity, and so the drama of that was really so tense, and there was not much action in it, but it was so tense because it's so well written that it was they were able to kind of drive that story, and then the action kind of took care of itself, even though there wasn't like as cool of a fight scene as like say something like this. And I think that a lot of writers probably need to kind of keep that in mind of the storytelling itself should be the thing that drives the action, not the other way around. And I think that, with a lot of these frustrations, it's like, yeah, you're not doing it. I know you're trying to work backwards, but even working backwards, you're not really respecting your own continuity, like you said, Nathan, about why would she do that?
Bruce. She doesn't like Bruce.
Exactly. So it's like it's not working in any sort of way where it explains the action. Now, I do want to say that, there is maybe a little bit of motivation from Lady Vic's standpoint in that this is another kind of set up revenge type of thing for the death of her boyfriend. However, it's not very well executed, and you almost have to recall in your mind it's not a direct connection to that. You have to kind of think a little and say, oh yeah, it's that, not that or that. That's her motivation.
Yeah, I mean, I sort of understood her motivations within this scene. Lady Vic's motivation, because this scene does happen after we saw the flashback of her boyfriend dying. And I guess the stakes for Barbara in this scene is basically she doesn't want to die. But like I said, it's this action is pretty to look at, and it's probably like you said, it's probably the best action in the episode. But they have to do better.
Poor execution, set up poorly.
So apparently, this fight was just to do something with her. I assume the Flash is sort of like a neuralizer or some sort of because she took this picture, and I don't think it was actually her taking a picture. I think it was her flashing, unless they needed her face for like a mask or something like that. I think it.
Yeah, probably.
But quite frankly, she's the commissioner. They could probably just take her from television. They know what she looks like. So I think this was actually something was communicated to her brain through this flash. I think is what they're trying to hint at here, and we'll find out more in the next episode or later on in the season. So maybe it's like one of those like triggers that say like, oh, you're being brainwashed right now. Yeah. I don't know. So then we have at the end of this episode we have Jason going completely off the deep end, and Tim Drake's father is shot. It doesn't. I don't know. There's a couple gunshots. I don't know if his mother's dead as well. This is also a deviation from the comics, because I think Tim Drake's parents are fine in the comics. He has far less issues. He's just smart, and he just figured out who Batman was, as opposed to taking the wheels off of his tire, the wheels off of his the Batmobile like Jason Todd did. So I don't know why they did this, to give him some tragedy, I guess, or whatever. We don't know. Yeah. We don't see whether or not they're going to die, but he at the end of this episode, his father's shot, and I don't see his mother. And at this point, do you think there's like any redemption for Jason? Like, what could they do to make it make sense that they're taking him back and they're forgiving him for like he's not only on drugs, he's become a drug dealer, and he knows that what the drug is going to do is just going to increase crime, and he's outside while people are getting gunned down. He like a few months ago he was beating on people who were doing this or threatening people. What could they possibly write? And in the hands of a more skilled writer, I wouldn't be concerned about them writing themselves out of this corner, but they haven't shown themselves to be as skilled as they haven't shown themselves to be consistently skilled. Like they do good things and they don't do good things, and I feel like the situation that they created for themselves is too complex for them to write themselves out of, given what I've seen.
I mean, I think that you never could underestimate what writers can do. I mean, the yellow eyes does remind me a lot of the Anakin Skywalker, premise. They kind of borrowed that from episode 3 here a little bit, with the red and then the yellow eyes. So maybe there could be some redemption arc, but it doesn't look very good for Jason right now to have some sort of arc. And, even if they try to do some type of redemption arc with Jason, the way that you're explaining, Nathan, is you don't probably have a lot of confidence with them. If they even did do it, we would probably be like, what's going on?
Yeah, it would.
It's like poorly executed.
Yeah, like everyone will be like congratulating him or bringing him into the fold where it doesn't make sense that they would. Or they're saying, oh, he was just on drugs, but lots of people are on drugs. They don't become killers. They don't. They like he killed Hank at this point. I think they're setting up Tim to be want to go after him as in vengeance, because he killed at least one of his parents, maybe both of his parents. So Tim, that's how Tim will become Robin. So if Tim is Robin because of this tragedy that Jason visited upon him, how is he going to work with him later on as another good guy? There's unless, like I said, they just do bad writing, like.
They probably would. You never know. I mean, that's been the track record so far. I wouldn't be surprised if they do just kind of like do an end around or kind of say, yeah, he was under the spell of Jonathan Crane, and no, that was not him, and stuff like that. I mean, I think that there's been a lot of redemption arcs that's been done in the past. Some better done than others.
Mm-hmm.
Some kind of a little bit explained away. Like even in Winter Soldier, I mean, Bucky, killed a lot of people over a 50-year period, but it was explained away to say, oh yeah, he was part of the Avengers, so it's okay that he kind of went through that, and they kind of did it more conveniently. I wouldn't want to say that's lazy writing or anything like that, but I think that they haven't proven themselves that they can get this type of pass, whereas like Marvel is like, okay, you can kind of skate by with some odd explanation or even like reasonable explanation that you can kind of, okay, you're okay. But for this show, yeah, it's kind of going to be hard for them to kind of have that based on their track record.
Yeah, I think you're being overly critical of Marvel's decision there, because I feel like they explained Bucky's arc fairly well in the movie, but they definitely spent a good portion of the Falcon and the Winter Soldier also explaining it as well. So they explained it a little bit in Winter Soldier. They explained it further in Civil War, and then they expanded upon it even more in Falcon and the Winter Soldier. And I think at the end of the movie, he's still the Winter Soldier, so he's still dealing with that stuff. Like they're not like letting him off the hook. There's a progression there, and at a certain point he won't be the Winter Soldier anymore, and he'll be able to let himself free of that stuff. But they show him wrestling with his decisions. They show him tortured by his decisions. I think at the very end of the Falcon and Winter Soldier, and we talked about this when we reviewed it, they should have spent a little bit more time in that uncomfortable place where we actually heard that conversation that he had with the old man. But I think that they actually did the work with Bucky. Okay. And unless they turn the show over to Jason for the rest of the season, they're not going to have enough time. He's just one of like 8 characters in the show. They're not going to have enough time to focus on him to give him that redemption arc. So, yeah.
Yeah, maybe they'll just kill him off. I mean, I don't know. I mean, by this time he might be irredeemable. That they're just gonna say, "Oh, the heck with it. We're just gonna let him die."
Yeah, I don't know. I like I said, I'm feeling very mixed about this show right now. I think I will continue to watch it, but I'm similarly frustrated with this season as I was with previous seasons because of just the writing. That the potential is there, and they do some good stuff, and then they do some good stuff. It seems like they have some good overall like story sketches. The way that they're putting together the story is for the season makes sense, and they have some touch points when they're planning this out. They have some touch points that are good, but they don't know where to start and end an episode. What information they should be in an episode. They also, inside of an episode itself, they make weird decisions about action. Like I said, when we were talking about the barber scene, and also the detective scene, where they had to put action in the middle of the detective scene, because I don't know if they underestimate the audience. I think they underestimate the audience. And another thing, I mean, I didn't mention this as we were going through the episode, because it's a small, given all the other issues that I have, this is one of the smaller issues that I have. But they seem to drop F-bombs for no reason, and I don't really care about cursing, but. Right. When it's distracting, when it's cursing, when someone puts cursing in the script to show that the person is, I don't know, badass or or edgy. We get a F Batman in the middle of this episode for no reason but to show that
that's true.
To show that Barbara's she's edgy. It's like, why would she say something like that? It doesn't make any sense whatsoever. Profanity just to, like I said, to seem like you're cool makes you look silly, and it's it's distracting.
Yeah, but I mean, I think that on the flip side, I think that when Blackfire escaped from the car and Kory was saying "F," like what's going on, like, F, that was actually good. That
made sense. That made sense within the context.
Exactly.
I didn't have an issue with that one. I had an issue with the F Batman one, because at this point they've said, and and throughout the show, you had I don't think you saw season 1, but they had an F Batman in that episode. That season as well. Sorry, that season as well. I think it actually made it into the trailers. And at the beginning of the season, Jason says F Joker, and I mean, okay. Whatever. The exasperated F-bomb that Kory put, that made sense.
That made sense. Yeah, I like that actually. That was very funny actually.
Yeah. Because she was stupid, or they were stupid to leave her in the car, and that was the appropriate reaction to what happened.
Exactly.
Seeing it there. But anyway, any final thoughts about the episode? Or I think this is actually the last scene of the episode.
I think you're right, Nathan. In many ways, is that it's really testing our patience. Comparatively speaking to what we talked about with Marvel, it's like Marvel is like, we're very intrigued. We want more, and we can't wait until the next week's episode. But then with Titans, it's like in some ways it's a slog. In some ways it's very compelling, but they're not. It's like that.
No.
It's like that. I think someone online said it's like that. It's like that underachieving kid that has so much potential, but like don't do the work, and then like Marvel, it's like they always do the work, but to various degrees, they're still going to be consistent. They're consistent.
Yeah, they're consistently good.
But they do their work.
They're consistent. They're consistently good. Sometimes they don't get A. Sometimes they get B's.
Correct.
Even B minuses. But you can see that there was effort there, right?
Yes.
But here is. I don't know. I at this point I've explained in excruciating detail, because we probably talked about this episode longer than we talked about the Wet F episode, even though I think we liked the Wet F episode. It was a better use of our time this week than this episode. Yeah. But we had to explain why there were issues with this episode. That's why it took longer to talk about this episode.
Yeah.
So yeah, I will continue watching it, but given the other things that I have to do, I'm a little annoyed with the show right now, and I want it to be better. I want it to be worth my time. I'm okay with my recommendation at the beginning of this, saying that if you want to skip this episode, you can skip it and then move on to the next one, and I'll let you know next week, or we'll let you know next week whether or not you should watch next week's episode 2 as well. So yeah. That's where I am with the show. But we want to hear from you guys. What do you think about the show? So please comment down below, like and subscribe for more content like this, and we will see you next week. Thanks. Bye.